Hello, everybody. This is Vicki Jeter from Louisville Center for Spiritual Living, introducing our midweek inspiration video. And this introduction is going to start each of our midweek videos for a number of weeks that we haven't determined exactly how long that will be. But I wanted to let you know that our midweek inspiration is presently the recording of the presentation portion of our Sunday service from the previous Sunday. And each one is going to start with the ringing of the crystal bowl, which is the beginning of our sacred service time. And so someone will ring the bowl, and then there'll be a reading by that same person. And then after the ringing of the bowl will come the presentation. And then it's going to be just that same order. We just wanted to let you know per this introduction what that is, because other than it starting with a reading, you don't have any idea of knowing that this is the beginning of the Louisville Center for Spiritual Living midweek inspiration and where it comes from. So we just wanted to let you know that. And also, I thought I would take the time to say that if anyone has any questions about what they hear or see, or anything you want to let us know, you're more than welcome to email me. And my email is VICKY, B as in boy, J as in Jack, ETER, that's Vicki B. Jeter, @gmail.com. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this week's presentation. Thank you.
This is kind of a story. My reading is kind of a story, so we'll go forward with that. In 1956, my parents ridiculously moved us from the comfort and familiarity of my grandparents' home in Gallatin, Tennessee, to Louisville, Kentucky, where I would start the first grade in September of that year. Shortly thereafter, my mother and I would begin attending the small Friendship Baptist Church that was just a few doors down the street. The Friendship Church was the kind of church where the congregation, when praying, would slide from their seats to kneel on the floor, and everyone prayed aloud their own personal and unique prayers. And occasionally, someone would get very animated when praying. It was loud, unpredictable, and it scared me. I don't think my mother truly, cared for it either, but she received a lot of attention there. She was a beautiful Liz Taylor lookalike, so we kept going. And every Sunday, I found myself sitting in the pew between my mother and our neighbor, Mrs. Fortner, who was the original church lady. With my little legs sticking straight out from the seat, it was there where I listened off and on to the pastor's messages, and mostly I tried to stay awake by admiring the shine my mother had put on my patent leather Mary Janes that morning with a half a biscuit that was left over from breakfast. Anybody else do that? On one of those Sundays when I was 8 years old, I sat staring at the way the lace ruffle around my turned-down socks reflected in my shoes. But I caught something the pastor was saying. I can't really remember exactly how he worded it, but it was something about a vengeful God and our needing to please him. As I lifted my gaze from my shoes to the pastor, I thought to myself, I don't believe that about God. In just about the time it takes for lightning to strike you dead, I swung my head towards my mother and then quickly around to Miss Fortner to be certain they had not heard that thought. Even at 8 years old, I knew it would not be good to not believe what I had been taught for so many years. It appears they hadn't heard, but I remained on edge until we got home that day. That was the first time I remember knowing my beliefs were different from other people. About a year later, we switched our membership to a larger and quieter Southern Baptist church about 1.5 miles away. This church was big. It had beautiful new green carpet and padded pews. There was a playground for us kids. It was there that I was the faithful Baptist Sunday school goer, a member in good standing of the Girls Auxiliary, was baptized and married there. And that whole time, no one but me knew that I didn't fit in, that I felt like a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. Soon after I married, I converted to Catholicism. I raised my children as Catholics, sent them to Catholic schools, attended Mass faithfully, and even sat on a few liturgical committees. I was a good Catholic. So why was I a misfit? I loved fish and bingo. I loved the churches with their amazing stained glass windows, the statues, the incredible organs, and I love the antiquity of the religion. Still, I harbored the secret that I didn't fully believe what I was hearing, and I was even allowing my children to be taught the same. I couldn't comprehend why I didn't accept all the things the others so readily accepted. On a beautiful day in early summer 1984, I came home from work and went up the front steps to our home and reached my hand into the mailbox to pull out the day's mail, as I always did. But something caused me to stop and sort through it before I entered the house. One of the envelopes caught my attention, and I actually sat down on the steps and opened it. I opened not just an envelope, but a confirmation of lifetime beliefs. Inside the envelope were a letter and a colorful flyer advertising Science of Mind magazine. There before my very eyes were quotes from articles, clips from stories, affirmation, and most importantly, I found there the message that I was not alone. Not only was I not alone, there was an entire community of people who thought like me. And they had their own magazine and their own churches. I subscribed to the magazine that day, and every month when it arrived, immediately I opened it to the center section and looked for the listing of churches, hoping there was something somewhere in Kentucky or Indiana. But no luck. I did that for 22 years. 264 months. And those 264 months, I remained a devout Catholic misfit. Then one day, I opened the magazine, and lo and behold, I saw that there was a study group in Kentucky. Not only was it in Kentucky, it was in Louisville. I called the nice lady whose number was listed and told her I wanted to attend. Her name was Vicki, and she gave me very detailed directions on how to get there. I knew where it was, and I was so excited. That day, for some unknown reason, though, I took a wrong turn and was late arriving. I grumbled to myself all the way to the door about searching for this my whole life and couldn't somehow manage to get there on time. That study group turned into LCSL. Over the last 13 years, we've been together in an apartment clubhouse, in Vicki's living room, a spare room in a house turned psychologist office, in our minister's parlor room, in a museum, a community center, a chiropractor's spare office space, the community room of an integrated health building, a Unity church, and now the lower level of an event venue. The looks and feel of all these spaces were dramatically different We haven't had amazing stained glass windows, beautiful statues, or grand organs. At one place, the floor squeaked, and at another, you could hear the toilet flush during meditation. But there were two things that have always been consistently available and flawless: the teachings of Ernest Holmes, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you. What more could I have asked for? Principals, teachers, and students. When I opened the door to that study group, I stepped into a whole new world of like-minded people and of teachings that still ring true to me today. Teachings I want to learn more of even after years of study. Teachings I will follow anywhere. Teachings that have assured I will never be a misfit again.
Pat was telling her story, and she mentioned Girls Auxiliary. You're not Baptist, you probably don't know what that is, but they had studied and did good works and memorized scripture and all that kind of stuff. And then once a year we had this big celebration. All the girls wore, like, not formals, but close to it. You know, that we were really dressed up. You had a special dress for this. And I remember a lot of those things. Everyone, and there were several, every one of the pictures that we took, my foot sticking out. And my friend teased me about that. Why do you keep sticking your foot out? I don't know. You're just afraid we won't notice you. That's why you stick your foot out. Anyway, brought back all those memories. Pat, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate your personal stories.
Thank you.
Yes, I really do. Okay. 1924 or 26 or thereabouts, there was a young novelist, and he and a friend of his, a lady, were walking in a park in Berlin. They both saw this little girl, and she was crying and crying and looking under the bench and around the trees and in the bushes and everywhere she could to try to find, you know, what she was looking for. And so they stopped and they asked her. They asked her, well, are you okay? Can we help you? She said, I've lost my doll. And she's just crying like crazy. I lost my doll. My doll is gone. And so they helped her look. And then the next day they said they'd meet her back there and they'd help her again. And so the next day they met her back there. And Franz was trying to figure out how he could help her. And so he decided that he would write letters. And he wrote letters every day for 3 weeks and gave them to the little girl. And it was letters from the doll who said, I'm traveling. I'm sorry I had to leave so quickly. But you know, travels start very quickly. And I had to go, and so I've been traveling. And I've been here, and I've been there, and I've met someone, and I married and settled down, so I can't come back. But I just wanted you to know that I'm out here and life is good and all that stuff. So for 3 weeks, every week she got a letter from her doll. And then finally, that she got a doll. Franz wanted her to have a new doll. And in it, it had a letter from her old doll that said, you know, I know that this doll looks different, but traveling will really change you. And it's not exactly me, but it will fill in for me. And he gave it to her. And it's a very famous story in Germany, and it's a very famous story in literary circles. The author was Franz Kafka, and I'll talk more about him in a few minutes. The story, to me, is a representative story of kindness. And so we're going to talk about kindness a little bit this morning. And so, do you hear what I hear in kindness for what he did? Taking his time to write his letters and bring them to the little girl and make her feel special and all of that. That's kindness. And as I was thinking about that, I thought, how do you define kindness? You know, I think you know it when you see it. But sometimes you don't really, there aren't any words for it. You just know that that was a kind thing. And they talk about kindness as being fellowship and support and that kind of thing. And being a nice person to other people. One of the quotes from Kafka is, to be a kind person in the harsh world that we live in is to say to the world, I don't have to be like you. I can be kind. Because he was in Berlin in 1920, and he was Jewish. And he actually has a form of literary that's named after him, Kafka-esque. And I don't know whether you've ever read any of this stuff. I'm reading along about him, and I talk about the book Metamorphosis. Metamorphosis is where a man turns into a very large roach. I know, I saw that. And I can't remember whether it was a high school teacher or a college teacher that made me read that book. But you do not forget that book. It is not the kind of thing that you forget. He's credited with being one of the first authors to really explore what it meant to be human. And so he would talk about tragedy, he would talk about death, he would talk about all these things that most authors didn't do. They wrote War and Peace, but they didn't really talk about turning into a very large roach and all that, what that meant and how he was not accepted and all. He came from a childhood where his father was both unpredictable and at times brutal. And so he came from a childhood that was not happy. And he lived in Prague. He gave Prague the name, the little mother with claws. And they still, in that area of the world, call Prague that. And I don't really quite understand, but he didn't think Prague was a good place, So he just saw Berlin as being, heaven on earth. He just really did. And even after he moved there and he found out it wasn't much better than Prague in a lot of ways, he still held to that dream that Berlin was special, that it was a place where you could really live a good life and you could be accepted and it was good. Now, he's in that whole anti-Semitism that was so strong in Germany between the wars, and he was in all of that, and there was cruelty happening on the streets, and Jews were being picked up, and it was all starting. And yet he held to the fact that Berlin was this wonderful place. When he was 34, he got sicker, and he had never been a really healthy person. He had two major romances in his life. He never married, he never had children. He had two major romances, and one of the ladies said, "He's a hard person to have as a boyfriend." And I can imagine that he was. He had very low self-esteem. He asked his best friend that they had met in college, and he asked his best friend that when he died, burn all my work. Burn everything I've written, and if it's in print now, let it run out its print and don't reprint it, and burn it. Burn it. And his friend, and then when he died, his friend gathered up everything he couldn't keep, and he kept it. And of course, the world is much blessed by his writing, by his understanding that came from great pain. So the year that he was writing letters to his little girl is the same year that they moved him into a sanitarium back near Prague, and he died of tuberculosis very soon afterwards. So he was a very interesting person, very shy, very non-confident, He would write something and he'd think, "Oh, no, it's not worth it." And his friend would say, "Oh, yeah, it's good." And then, they'd get it published for him and sell like crazy, because it was something that people had really never read before. It was a whole different way of looking at being human and looking at the world. So this man who never had children, who never was married, took time for this little girl. Took time to write her a letter every day, and to go and meet her at the park every day to take the letter and sit and read it to her and be with her. And so I just think that's one of the greatest examples of kindness, of reaching out in a place to be kind to another person. They made a short film about the story, and this was the flyer for that film, about the little girl, and that's his girl, the lady that he was walking through the park with, and that is him. And I just think, a long time ago, guys. All right. Now, he has quotes that are still quoted, of course. And one of them is, "Youth is happy because it has the capacity to see beauty." anyone who keeps the ability to see beauty never grows old. So I love that. I mean, do you notice the beauty? It's springtime, and I need to go walk out in my front yard because I got a lot of bulbs out there. They're coming up, and I need to spend some time really appreciating the beauty of them and the hardiness of them to have survived all this rain and yet still be, you know, coming on up. And so it's just a really neat way to think about maintaining your approach to life that sees the beautiful and appreciates that and everything else in your life. Because when you do that, you never grow old. Now, tell me what the elements of kindness are.
Compassion.
Protective? Is that what you said?
No, I said compassion, but protective would be good too.
Okay, compassion, all right.
But empathy.
Empathy? Okay. Yes.
I was thinking how there is a willingness to suspend maybe what's truth for happiness. So in his letters and that, there wasn't really the true situation, but he decided he could go beyond that in a way and do what made her feel okay.
Yeah, it would comfort her. And it would give her an optimism about things. And she could say goodbye to her old doll and feel like that it wasn't lost and getting dirty and all that stuff, but that it was actually on a great adventure. And so that was a huge gift for him to give to her and everybody who's ever read or watched the movie or known about the story. All of us think, wow. So we have benefits. There's been a lot of things about what benefits you get physically from being kind. You're healthier. You are, your heart is healthier. You have less anxiety. You live longer. You have less stress. And kindness prevents illness. So if you're not currently thinking about being kind to other people, think about it. You know, and when you get the urge to do something that you think would be kind, do it. You know, do it. I've gotten to where, and I think I've told you this before, when I'm walking through a crowd and I see a lady, I don't tell the man that they look good, but when I see a lady that just looks really pretty, or her hair is really nice, or her blouse is really, I tell her, you know, and that's the only thing that we exchange. But I know, having been on the receiving end, how good it feels. You know, just that little thing about, I love your top. Oh, thanks. You know, that kind of thing. Or I love your hairstyle, because most of us women worry a lot about our hairstyle. You know, and it's just a way to be anonymously kind, which is one of the things that we want to do. We don't always want to trumpet and say, I'm being kind. Are you noticing? But to do it in just as part of who we are and what we do in this lifetime. So, and talk about science of mind, listen to this quote. By believing passionately in something that still does not exist, we create it. The non-existence is whatever we have not sufficiently desired. You think that sounds like science of mind? Some of the classes we've had. By believing passionately in something that still does not exist, we create it. The non-existent is whatever we have not sufficiently desired.
And that's a quote from him.
Yes, oh yeah. If it's not from him, I'll tell you. Oh, wait a minute, I was supposed to, yeah, that's his quote. And, all right, so we talked about the health benefits of being kind, right? And are there other benefits of being kind? If you want to help your relationship be kind, even when you don't want to be, even when you're, you know, you'd rather fuss at whoever's in relationship with you and tell them what they're doing wrong and straighten up. You don't do that. you act with kindness for them and who they are. And Bob's taking notes. And she goes to a doctor with me, and the nurse will say, "You're a good man." I said, "Yeah, tell her." So anyway, make it a point to be kind. Yeah. You don't have to go anywhere, just be kind in your daily things.
It has a tendency to take me out of my own problems.
Yes.
And yet, the really good thing about that is we can be taken out of our own problems by someone else's problems, but if you're doing it out of kindness, you're not thinking about the problem, you're thinking about leveraging everything.
Yeah. You're thinking about them as a person.
Right.
And what can you do to make their lives better? You know, what can
And
you?
you feel better
Yes.
when you do an act of kindness.
Yes.
It's just as great a wonderful thing to you as it is to the person you did the kindness for.
Yes, absolutely.
And Ms. Ham's over
Absolutely.
here too.
I'm looking at the word, and I don't know if it's true or not, but looking at the word, it would seem to me to think that the word may come from the word kindred, which is like likeness.
Uh-huh, yeah, recognizing the likeness between different people. Yeah, that's cool. All right, so.
Kindness also takes up less space in your head.
Yeah, it takes up space in your head.
Less space in your head
Right,
than meanness or
yes.
grudges and things like that.
And, I mean, your whole attitude is different. You know, it's like, when I walk through and I tell somebody that their hair is really pretty, you know, I feel better. They smile and I feel better and I'm lighter and, you know, all of that. So it's somewhat selfish thing to do. All right. Did I leave that one up? I think he's a handsome young man too, isn't he? Yeah, I think he's really handsome. So Franz is someone who wrote a story or lived a life, and there's debate on whether or not it actually happened or he just wrote it. But there's always debate. When something's happened, you know, close to 100 years ago, people are debating it all the time. But you take a young man, didn't make past 34, who had a rough childhood, had a lot of mental challenges as far as confidence and all of that, and yet he wrote prolifically. And he, you know, it was just who he was and what he was. And he gave kindness. He challenged people with his books and with his short stories. He's wrote more short stories than most novelists ever do. And the short stories, there's an art form to them. They're not easy because you got to get a lot done in that short amount of time. And he was champion at it. And he left, a lot of his stories left you going, what? You know, one of the quotes I read by a man named Hoffman, he said, you know, you finish your story and you know it was important and it had something to do with life and it had something to do with maybe sex and it had something to do with bravery, and it, but you don't really know what it was. You just know that it was important. So that's what he is. I went to get Kai to comb my hair out, and I said, do you know who this is? He said, oh yeah. You know, his degrees are in English and writing. And he said, oh yeah, he's very famous, a very quoted person. So I leave you with that to think about a little week. Oops. I have a meditation. What happened to Mo? Are you back there, Mo?
No, he stepped out for me.
Okay, well, all right. That's okay. Anybody want to ask questions about kindness or give comments about it? Or, you know, we talk about loving everybody. I don't know about you, but I love them in my head, you know, that kind of thing. But there are people I don't like. But I can always be kind. You know, I don't have to think that they're perfect and that they have the right opinions. But it's okay. One of the best ways to be kind is to listen and not have to fix, not have to teach. Someone tells you that they're going to do something and you see a better way. If they would just do it your way, you're saying, I'm smarter than you are. And so you are disrespecting them. And so one of the greatest ways to be kind is simply to accept people for who they are, for what they are doing and who they are. And sometimes they'll ask you for advice and you can give it. But most of the time they don't want advice, they just want you to listen. And that's what you want to do. So, another way to be kind. Yes?
I'm sitting here thinking through how maybe that kindness is one of those things that sort of begins at home
Yes.
with yourself.
Yes.
And a lot of people find kindness difficult, I think. May also be very type A. Get your stuff done and go. So it's like, well, wait a minute now.
Yeah. And they're self-critical.
You're self-critical,
Yeah.
Much worse than anybody else could.
Yeah. And that kind of keeps them from being kind to themselves. And so if you're not kind to yourself, it's kind of hard for you to step out and be kind to someone else. So, yeah.
So this isn't about kindness, but I don't know if y'all were able to catch, she said the name of the story about the transformation of the man into the cockroach as metamorphosis. And if you are catching this and you want to just look up the title of that story, it would be one that really feeds into a lot of what we talk about with the process of creation and everything. I just wanted to put that back out there.
Now, it's not an easy book. I mean, you know, it's just not an easy book. I mean, you think, but you don't forget it. You know, I took it, if I was in college, it was 40 years ago. If I was in high school, it was 43 or 4 years ago. But I have never forgotten that book. There's some books that just have kind of a haunting idea in them that you just can't get over. And that's one of those books. And I like the young man. You know what? I read about more and more about his history and all. I hope people were kind to him. You know, because some of them were, because he deserved it. He really did. So, okay. We're going to do our meditation without background music because we are flexible. All right. So I invite you to put both feet on the floor and your hands in your lap. Straighten your spine. Rest your head on your shoulders. Just gently letting them be exactly where they need to be. And breathe deeply. And as you breathe deeply, let go of any tension, any ought to's, any I wish I would'ves, any of that stuff, and just be in this moment right here, right now. And breathe. This is from the poem that was written by Ernest Holmes called Song of the Creator. All paths of worship lead to me. All shrines to me along. The hymns of praise through all the ages are parts of my celestial song. I am the beginning and the end. All that is one vast whole. I am the Father and the Son. I am spirit, body, mind, and soul. Nature clothes my many forms in plant, tree, in air and stone, in iron and wood, in bird and beast, in the sower and the sown. Smaller than the smallest atom, largest than the greatest seed, the moving force in each and all, the pageant and the pageantry. And so we just let whatever stands out to us be in our thoughts. And we listen. We let our spirits and our minds take us where we need to be. To feed us in the ways that we need to be fed. Knowing that it is all perfect, all in balance. And we breathe. With thankfulness in our hearts, we know that as we turn our attention to the wholeness, we find there ourselves and everything else. And we let it feed us. We let it comfort us. We let it create the atmosphere of love. So we take a deep breath. Cleansing breath, cleansing oxygen, straightens our bodies, feeds our bodies exactly what they need, and gives us more of the attitude we want. And so with thankful hearts, we let it be. And so